I've been collecting games for a while now, and every now and again I like to look at the stuff on my shelf that's quietly become expensive. I'm not talking about rare prototypes or crazy limited edition, I mean actual games we all grew up with or hunted down over the years and the crazy price tags some of them now have. I want to dig into the most expensive games in my collection across the 6 systems I collect for and look at why they're so expensive, if they've always been expensive, and most importantly, are they actually worth it? Some of these games sold millions of copies, some barely sold at all, and one of them is so suspiciously pristine that I'm like 90% sure the box is fake, but we'll get to that later. Is this video a subtle flex, or is it straight copium after I looked at my collection price and price charting and started to think about how much money I've spent on this hobby? I'll let you decide that. Let's go from oldest to newest, so we'll start with the most expensive game I own for the NES, the original Legend of Zelda. There's something almost mythical about seeing a complete in-box copy of The Legend of Zelda today. Back in the day, the second you got home from the store with your new game, that cardboard was getting torn open like a Christmas present. Manuals got lost behind couches, maps got drawn on with a pencil. Kids didn't treat these things as collectibles, they treated them like toys. So to see an NES box survive intact is wild, just in general, and by that nature means the complete in-box NES games are a bit pricey. Obviously, the original Legend of Zelda is not some tiny niche game. This thing was a phenomenon the moment it dropped. It was one of Nintendo's first big attempts at an open world adventure, long before open world was even a concept. It sold about 8.5 million copies, which is enormous. It was the game that everyone was talking about at school, about secrets they found. It was revolutionary. Fun fact, Zelda was actually the first NES game with battery-backed saving, meaning you didn't have to rely on passwords like other games. This was mind-blowing for the time. Not only that, but the cartridge is gold, mainly to give it that truly legendary feel, and it literally sets the game apart visually on a store shelf. But back on topic, most copies were played into the ground. Kids didn't collect them and keep the boxes pristine, as we all know, they destroyed them. When I was growing up with the Game Boy Advance and the DS, it was all the rage to get rid of the original packaging and get a sort of holder for just the cartridges. Looking back, this is so painful. So complete in-box copies are scarce, especially nice ones. But my copy, calling it rough is generous. It is not good. It's beat beyond belief. It does have a bit of an attic smell, but I actually love it. I snagged it on eBay a few years ago, and it kicked off my journey into collecting and exploring the NES. There's something charming about a copy that looks like it's lived a full, chaotic life, and my wallet is a little happier for it. At today's rates, a clean, complete in-box one goes for a whopping $130. And personally, my nostalgia for this game comes from my middle/high school GameCube obsession, not the NES era. The first time I played through the game was on the GameCube Zelda collection. I'd sit in my room with this bulky CRTV that was at the end of my bed, pulling up grainy 2008 era YouTube guides from a creator whose voice I have permanently burned into my brain, but for the life of me cannot remember the name of. Owning the original NES cartridge now, even in rough condition, feels like holding these memories physically in my hands, and the game remains one of my favorites of all time. Let's switch gears a bit from my insanely damaged Zelda box to the other end of the spectrum and talk about my suspiciously pristine Pokemon Pinball Sapphire and Ruby for the Game Boy Advance. I referenced this at the beginning of the video, but I think that the box for this one might be fake, so let's take a look since it's the most expensive GBA game I own. In terms of severity, kids destroying NES boxes was, let's say, stubbing a toe. The destruction of GBA boxes by kids is like getting shot in the chest with a rifle. I can't even begin to describe how kids wiped these things out immediately. You'd open the game in the car, the box would fall apart, and by the time you get home, it was like it's been through a shredder. Game Boys are mobile, and you want to know what isn't mobile? A stack of boxes holding game cartridges the size of 2 grapes, so naturally everyone got a cool carrying case for the games like I mentioned earlier. Anyways, Pokemon Pinball released in 2003 during the Game Boy Advance's peak. This was the era of Metroid Fusion, Golden Sun, Advance Wars, and like 20 Pokemon spin-offs. It sold over 5 million copies, which is insane for a pinball title, but not surprising when you slap a Pokemon logo onto it. The NES really sparked my interest as I started to collect games and play games for the NES. I got Pinbot and Pinball Quest, which, side note, is one of the strangest and coolest ideas Nintendo has ever published. A pinball RPG, I don't know who approved that, but they're geniuses. But alongside picking up and playing those games, my newfound love for pinball games made me look into the genre on GBA, and the one I settled on picking up is this one you see here. But there's a problem, maybe. It looks too pristine. The box is so clean it feels suspicious. The corners are crisp, not really any wear that I can really see, but it smells like it should. It smells like old cardboard in an attic. I seriously can't tell whether it's legit or just a very well-crafted reproduction. I'm curious what you guys think. If anybody knows, please leave it in the comments. Does anything stand out to you? I should probably bring this into a retro game store and have them look at it. They should be able to tell me once and for all. The current market value sits around $230 $30 whopping dollars for this bad Larry. Even if the box ends up being fake, this game is fire and one that I absolutely love having in my collection. It's the game that probably has the most play on my Game Boy Advance. But let's move on to the first non-Nintendo game we'll talk about. Digimon Rumble Arena 2, the most expensive game I owned for the original Xbox. Digimon Rumble Arena 2 released in 2004 and it was good, but it didn't get a massive spotlight and it wasn't a system seller since it's not exclusive. It was just a fun arena brawler in a time that Smash Bros was still a staple in any gamer's collection. The GameCube version is now the rarest and most expensive version of the game, and it wasn't because it had special content, it's just because overall GameCube print runs and sales were much lower. Growing up, I had this game on the GameCube, but my copy today is the Xbox version because I'm not trying to take out a loan to pay for one of these GameCube copies when I can pick it up much cheaper on the Xbox, especially when it's as beat up as mine. I mean, look at this thing. I did get mine from a local store, which I used my winnings from a Magic the Gathering tournament to pick up. I only paid about $50 for this one complete in box on the Xbox, but a nice one is going for around $80 at market price. And while I love it on the GameCube, the Xbox version works just great. Every time I boot this game up, it instantly takes me back. Digimon is underrated, and this game is a perfect reminder of that. Now, this next game we're going to talk about was included in my GameCube Hidden Gems video, which I just released last week. I'll leave a link to that in the description, and let's talk about Ultimate Muscle Legends vs. New Generation, a game worth way more than it should be. It really is the definition of a hidden gem. When I talk about underrated GameCube games, this is one that I will die on a hill for. It came out in 2003, right when GameCube was releasing banger after banger with Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, all that jazz, so the competition was insane. So an anime wrestling game based on a niche Japanese show, yeah, it got completely swallowed. It just didn't sell, the show isn't really massive in the US, and the print numbers were really low. I mean, GameCube collectors know this. Since the library is so small and they didn't sell very well, niche titles shoot up in value fast. I saw this game in person at a local store and it honestly felt so surreal. You read about these games online, but seeing one behind the glass is a completely different feeling, especially after not seeing it for 15 years. The copy they had didn't have the manual though, so I skipped it, and later I bought a beautiful complete in box one online, and complete in box copies are going for a crazy $130. Every time I replay this game, I'm reminded why I love it. It's goofy, chaotic, full of personality, and has that perfect early 2000s energy. It's easily one of the crown jewels of my GameCube shelf. Now, going from a really good game to a really bad game, let's talk about the most expensive Xbox 360 game I own, Onichambara Bikini Samurai Squad. This game sucks. It was overshadowed by pretty much every major release happening at the time. It sold poorly, got bad reviews, and almost nobody bought it. And that's good, because anyone who would have bought it would have been sorely disappointed. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons it's expensive now. Another shameless self-promotion, I made a video covering this game in depth, and I really recommend you check that one out on the channel. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's one of the worst games I have ever played. Metacritic even First Degree murdered it in their review upon release in 2012. I mean, the devs spent their whole budget on pioneering jiggle physics, and to their credit, they did some really impactful work there, but the rest of the game is just unplayable. The kicker here is that I picked it up at its peak. I paid like $100 for this thing, which I sorely regret. Any Xbox 360 collector will know 360 games are generally pretty cheap, so this is one of a few standouts. The price since then has come down dramatically. Complete in box copies run around $50 at current market value. Mine's complete and clean, so at least it has shelf appeal. This is the game that basically no collection needs. It's one where you just see it and think, yeah, that was a mistake, but it's my mistake. And finally, let's talk about the most expensive Wii game I have in my collection, Kirby's Dream Collection. This is actually a game that's expensive for good reasons. Released in 2012 to celebrate Kirby's 20th anniversary, Kirby Dream Collection came out right at the end of the Wii's life, but was able to sell roughly 700,000 copies. Not tiny, but not huge for a Nintendo franchise. This collection is packed, and I mean packed. Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, Kirby's Dream Land 2, Kirby Superstar, Kirby Dream Land 3, Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards, plus challenge stages, a soundtrack, and an art/history book in some versions. I usually stay away from multi-pack games and prefer to get the originals, but this is just too good to not pick up. Kirby's Adventure was one of my first NES games I got a few years back when I was getting into the NES, and it really made me fall in love with Kirby. I still play the newer ones on the Switch with my wife. There's just something so peaceful and cozy about the series. Now, this isn't the coolest or most flashy flashy Wii game, as I have an admittedly small Wii collection, but it's one that packs a ton of fun into it. Picking one of these up at the current price doesn't feel bad, as it's around $50 since it has so much content stuffed into it. But I'm curious, what's the most expensive game in your collection? And most importantly, is it worth the price tag? If you liked hanging out with me during this video, feel free to drop a comment, a like, a subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.